Okay, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning to all the online students, and a warm welcome to all those who would be tuning in at the e-learning later. Everyone's doing okay? Yes? Okay. All right. So, a quick recap about what we did last time. What did we do last time?
Good morning, Jean.
Good
We,
morning.
we studied about different types of questioning, why we need to question, open question, closed question, those kind of things.
Yes, yes. We learnt about questioning the last week, and we did a good role play too. Don't you agree? With John and
Absolutely.
Sam. All right. So today we're going to have gear up other two people. Okay. Like I said, we're going to have more practice. Um, so one from online, one from offline. So which of you is it going to be? Is yeah. So prepare yourselves. Okay. So before we get started, I now, since all my students have the phone here and they're able to see the PPT, I want to go back to the model once again, to just, if you'll remember what we had spoken about, of how the skills of the counselor helps in the learning process or in the counseling process of the counselee. So you remember this, we looked at this. Okay, so remember we did attending skills. When we attend the counselee, they get involved in the process, and then they begin to share, and they begin to come to a place of building that rapport. And so when they are involved, you as a counselor are going to be responding. We did those responding skills there. And when you respond, they begin to explore uh, their own stories, explore their thoughts, their attitudes, their feelings, their behavior. They begin to explore that. And this helps you, and you get into personalizing, getting them to understand how they are involved or what role they play within their problem. And that leads to an understanding, a understanding. And then it moves into, sorry, yeah, okay, it moves into initiating. You are helping them to initiate, and here is where you would also begin to influence, and that's what we're going to be looking at today. Okay, so initiating them into an action also would mean that you are influencing them into taking an action, and then it leads to a feedback, evaluation, and then a termination. All right, so this is an entire model or a process in the short slide. So as according to the skills, we've done attending, we've done responding, we did personalizing. In there is questioning. All of that, it's not a separate skill in itself, but it's a skill that is added on. So we're looking at how all of this has taken place. So today, in today's class, I'm just going to go back to the initial part of it. What we're going to look at is influencing skills. So what do you mean by the word influence? What do you think the word influence means?
To have an effect on someone.
Okay, it means to produce some kind of an effect. That's a great word. An effect without any kind of without exerting some kind of a force or any kind of a direct command. That's what influence is, right? So you can be influenced by watching somebody, by something that they're saying. You kind of exert some kind of an effect on someone without a direct force or without maybe any kind of a command. So why does a counselor need to influence? Students, wake up. Good morning. So why should a counselor influence?
Because we are hoping to bring about a positive change in the counseling.
Excellent. Yes, you influence because you're hoping to bring about a change. They've come with you with something that they need help with, and so through the skills that you're going to use, you're hoping that they will come to that place of looking at that change. So it is the counselor's proactive step towards change, right? That's when people are in problems in conversations. What are you doing is to help them think and stirring them up into some form of action, right? It's just not, counseling is just not about listening or you giving advice, because you want to stir up within them the need to be proactive to bring about a change. So that's why these skills of influencing are very, very important. Okay, so what's the meaning of it? They influencing skills actually is a direct approach to bring about some change. You're actually getting them to think and getting them to change. You may be discussing alternatives for their action so that the change can be quicker or the change can be permanent. Okay, so that's what you are hoping to do through the through influencing. A couple of things. You're using an approach where there will be change, where you're discussing strategies or different alternatives so that they can change their action, and change can either be quicker and it can be permanent, all right, from the state that they may be in. Okay, what's the purpose of it? It facilitates change in the way a client chooses to think or act. So remember, it is not written in the way the counselor chooses to think. It's not how you as a counselor would think. You are the influencer, but it's finally the counselee who chooses to act a different way. It helps them to bring about a new perspective or a new hope in their situation. So that's what you're doing at influencing. All right. So some of the skills that you're going to be learning towards this is helping in that, to influence them for change. Okay. Now, when is it used? It's used when they are exploring alternative ways of thinking or behaving. They have come with you with a struggle. That pattern or that way of thinking is not helping. So it is used when you want to help them think alternatively, to think another way, to think critically and behaving differently in that situation. Okay, so we're going to look at some influencing skills. There are a couple of influencing skills that we want to look at. I'm at page 40. All right, page 40 is where we are at. All right, so the first influencing skill that we're looking at is confrontation. So what is confrontation? Okay, what do you think the meaning of confrontation is? What's the meaning of confrontation?
Is it to make someone face?
Yeah, correct. So it is bringing them face to face with something. A confrontation is you're bringing them face to face with something. So a lot of times, your counselee will have stories that contradict one thing to another. Okay, and contradictions generally can complicate things further. Like, for example, they are telling you one part of their story, but maybe at a different part, they've actually mentioned something else. I'll give you an example so it will help you a little bit. Okay, so confrontation can be anything where you're bringing the person to clarify a certain contradiction that they may have spoken about, or it can be something that where they may be stuck in a certain problem. All right. So when I go to the example, I'll discuss that further. But when you're looking at confrontation, it actually helps your counselee to face themselves realistically, especially as they interact with other people. It is a direct technique with an open, honest identification of self-defeating patterns and manipulation. So in case a person is manipulating, let's say, an information, maybe they're not telling you the exact truth. Very often when counselees come to you, they won't tell you the whole truth. They will tell you the part truth. They will tell you, especially, let's say, when counseling with someone else in the picture, let's say a partner or a spouse or a parent, they will tell you that side which they're not able to see about their partner, but they generally won't reveal a lot about where they've been wrong, right? So that often becomes some form of a self-defeating behavior. Like I'm saying, so maybe suppose I'm the client, I am talking about my spouse who doesn't talk to me. Okay, I'm coming and complaining, saying my spouse doesn't talk to me. And what I'm probably not doing is I'm not available at all, right? I come in the morning, I leave in the morning, and I come back very late in the night. There's actually no time. So I have not told you that part of the issue. I've only told me my spouse doesn't talk to me. You know, he's very quiet. But I have not mentioned that I have no time, or I have, spend a lot of time somewhere else, that there isn't any time for connection, or there isn't any space for connection, which I haven't told you. So that is what sometimes becomes a pattern or a manipulate. Sometimes it can be a manipulative information. So this challenges the counselee to reconcile and integrate those aspects of themselves which are in conflict. So it may be something very conflicting to me, and that's why I haven't brought it up. And that's why the counselor actually looks deeper into that and confronts that situation. Okay, so let's look at an example, then it'd be a little bit more clearer. Okay, so the example here, the client is saying, I don't have time to exercise and I don't have the money to join a gym anyway, but I really want to lose weight and feel better. So what do you see here? What does a counselor saying? Wants to exercise, but they don't have the money, but they want to lose weight. So is that a contradiction? Yes? Okay. So the wrong way to approach it is, you're just making excuses then. You know what's good for you and you refuse to do it. It's right, but it's not properly framed. That what the counselor has said is not framed right. But what is the right way of doing it? On one hand, you know exercise is good for you, but yet on the other hand, you don't want to do it. Can you explain this to me? Right? So what are you doing? You're actually confronting that that conflict that they may be having, or this may not be a manipulation. It's a self-defeating technique, right? They're saying, I want to do this and I want to do that, but I can't, but it's not possible. So they've actually got your hands tied, right? They're saying, I want to go to the gym, but I don't have money, but I want to lose weight. Tell me what to do. So they think you have the answers, right? So this is what you want to help them confront, that there is a certain mind block, or there's a perspective change that you would like to help them. And so a question like this, your exercise is good for you, yet on the other hand, you don't want to do it. What's on your mind? Why do you think this is happening? Right? So you want to help them explore that for themselves, to influence them to think differently. Got that? Okay? All right. The next one is, this is again an influencing skill. It's called focusing. It aims to direct the focus of the client to another area, helping them generate a new perspective towards their own story. So in this, okay, so what this does is, it enables the counselor to direct the counselee's conversation into maybe another area of importance. Like suppose the counsel, I think there is an example here. Yeah, okay. Okay, so before I go to that example, maybe give you another example. Right, so suppose you notice that a counselee has mentioned very little about their family, is really not bringing about many things about their family, but you as a counselor begin to see that it is relevant. It is something that you would want to talk about. And that's how you direct the conversation onto something that you see is important, because you're influencing that conversation needs to be spoken about. Like, let's say, give you an example. Let's say a couple. Okay, there is a problem that that maybe one of the partners brings about. Okay, saying that there is no love in our marriage. All right, and through the conversation, you've got some clues, or from what they're saying, maybe from the other partner, that there is a lot of interference, or from the from the parents. You've got some clue in the conversation, and you begin to think that that could be an important information or something that you need to explore. So focusing means you're keeping away the focus from them, and you've moved out the focus and say, you had told me earlier about your mother coming and staying over. I wonder how is the dynamics of the family when she comes in, right? So what are you doing? You're not asking, is there a problem? That's not what you're asking. Or you're saying, looks like there's a problem. You're just asking, what could be the dynamics of the family when that parent comes in? So you're actually exploring more to understand where should the change be, because as they are articulating, they're also in a position to understand this can be a problem area. Okay, so let's look at an example. Okay, so the client is saying, I'm wondering how I will manage my finance, many bills to be paid, kids tuition fees, house maintenance, and much more. So the counselor says, you're worried about the many responsibilities you have financially. So the counselor says, yes, absolutely. So the counselor here is focusing, saying often the amount and the way we spend our money can give us a good idea on how we can manage finances. What are the other things you like to spend on, right? So what is the counselor client done here? Just told you the important things that she spent on, but have not mentioned anything else. And that's why the counselor says, what are the other things that you find you spend on? And so a lot of those information begins to come up. And, so that's what happens. The client's focus, it may be deliberate, it may not be deliberate, is only to bring up that which seems relevant to the conversation. But things like this, like she's spending maybe on, let's say, or something that's irrelevant. Okay, maybe they eat out much more often than they do, which has not come out in the conversation at all. And that's why it's important to focus on other things to get to what can be certain ways that this counselee can initiate action into reducing that finances. Okay, got that? Clear? Yeah.
So as a counselor, you're hearing the counselee and the two people. So when one of the counselor, you try to draw a cue that there was some interference from the parents. But sometimes, how do you determine as a counselor, it is just a just a blame game that one of the partners is putting on the parents? Or would you just try to conclude, yes, it's like more or less genuinely there's an interference from parents?
So you would do that by actually getting information. And that's why you're exploring that area of it. And
you will explore that from the person who's put both the sides.
Both the sides.
Okay.
Okay. Because like you said, they may say, one of the persons may say, yeah, after this parent came in, there was a lot of interference and whatever they may say. The other person may say, no, it's all, she's very biased to my mother, and that's why she's saying that. Okay. So you're probing further and probably asking that person, all right, now, what do you sense is the truth in what she's saying about maybe the interference thing? So maybe you get her to probably bring about certain examples. And then you say, what do you say about that? So he may say, yeah, I understand that my mother can be a little pushy, but still, yeah. So you see that that's a defense, right? So that's why more information and more probing into some of this really helps a lot more. And again, whenever you have two people sitting in a room and one person is sharing something, or you always get back to the other person, say, what do you think about what was just said? Rather than, because you never know, the other person may sometimes just be quiet because they just feel they've given up. right? Maybe this kind of blame has been happening since so long, they've given up. And that's why it's whenever you ask a question, how many ever people are there in the room, that question should be given to every one of them. Same question. So that you have an idea as to what's going, because some people can seem very convincing about whatever they're saying. And if you're, but maybe true, but maybe manipulated. But if you're not going to check with the others, you've gone with a bias already. All right. So remember, you are a very neutral party, especially when there are more than one people there. And that same question has to go with everybody. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's look at the third one. The third one is interpretation or reframing. And the objective of this is to help the counselee build a positive perspective towards a problem so that they can take good action. So what you're doing here is, generally when counselees come with a certain problem, they are very fixed on the meaning of that problem. So what are you doing here? You are reframing it and encouraging them, encouraging a shift by offering different alternative way of viewing their problem. All right, they see it in one lens, but you want to help them reframe it. Try and interpret that entire situation in a different manner. Okay, so let me give you an example of this. So here, the counselor is saying, moving away from home has made me miserable. I miss my family, my friends, and everything that was so familiar. So the counselor responds, you feel unhappy that you have left behind all your loved ones and everything that was familiar through this move. What good do you see through this? So what's the counselor trying to do? Trying to find? What's the counselor trying to do? Counselor trying to do? Through the last question there. What good do you see through this? Wake up.
To bring a new change.
Yeah, this counselor is trying to move away from the unhappy into something that probably looks better. So you feel unhappy because of these things, but what good do you see? So here the counselor says, I don't know, everything is so new. So look at the reframing that's happening. Being in new situations can be quite stressful, isn't it? However, it is an opportunity to experience new people and places. So you are helping them to interpret this differently. What do you think? Right? So think of it this way. When you are stuck in a dark room, all you can see is the dark room. But when you begin to look at the window outside, you begin to see some form of light, right? So a person stuck in a problem is only able to see darkness until you can show them a window that has light. So it's very similar to that. When the person is so stuck in a problem, what you're doing is giving them another perspective and saying, if, these situations, can be difficult, but they do also bring opportunities, or they do bring good things. What do you think it can bring for you? Or what do you think would be the smallest thing that you may find? So you're actually getting them to think differently. Okay? Yes? Are you here? Okay. All right. The next skill is logical consequences. We did a lot of consequences in marriage and family when we were talking about parenting. Remember? What does consequences mean? Yes, it's the result of a certain action. So what are you doing here is to help them visualize outcomes of some actions. And so what you're doing is helping them look at positive possibilities on how you can achieve those. So that's what consequences are. You are helping them to understand, if I do this, what can happen? If I do this, what also can happen? So that's what you are influencing them to. Because as I said, when a person comes to you, they're so stuck in a certain pattern that they are only getting the results of that pattern. So you want to change that course so that they can find something new. Okay, let's look at an example. The counselor is asking, what are your expectations regarding the medication that is given to you for depression? So the counselor says, I guess with the medication, I should feel better in a few days and have them taken off. All right. Actually, so the counselor says, actually, the first few weeks, you may really not experience much change. It may take a month or more to see the real effects of the medicine. Okay, so the counselor says here, oh, that's disappointing. And here then the counselor says, you really wish it would work quick. However, it would be necessary to keep a constant follow-up with the doctor. So you see what's happening over here is the counselor has said, I know I've taken medication, I'll feel better, and then I'll be off. So they're stuck in that pattern. And this is where the counselor brings in some information and says, it may take some time to see the real effects. And so then the counselor says, I understand you wish it would have worked quick. However, it would be necessary to keep a constant follow-up. So you are, at some points, you're giving some logical consequence to a certain situation that may come up as a difficult decision for them to make. All right? Like maybe if we were to give another example, let's say a student who does not want to do their exams. Okay? So maybe how would you do a logical consequences? Is saying, okay, what do you think can happen? This is an influence. What do you think can happen if you do not write your exam? Right? So they will state a few things, right? All right? And then I would ask again the other side of it. What do you think will happen if you manage to write your exam? So they will say, okay, I may pass, or I can somehow manage to write my exam with this kind of a preparation. So you are actually influencing them into making a decision through the logical consequences. What will happen if you don't write? What can happen? What do you think can happen if you manage to write? What would be one or two things so you're influencing their thinking through this. Okay, that's what's called as logical consequences. Okay? Yeah. Now this can be used in any case. Let's say someone comes to you with an issue with drug use or alcohol use. Right? What effect do you think this has on your family? What do you think would happen if you are abstinent for 1 month? What effect will that have on your family? So you're influencing that thought towards a direction that you would want them to make that positive change. Okay? Or are you with me? Yes, okay. All right, next one. And someone asked me this question last time. Self-disclosure. What does disclosure mean? Revealing. Self-disclosure is actually the counselor disclosing information which is relevant. Counselor, which may be relevant to the scenario. Not that you're sharing all your life personal stories. Maybe something that something very specific that you take the point of actually disclosing personal information, which can be supportive and it should be relevant. It's not. Yeah, it could be your personal experience, or it could be some other experience you've had. Okay, so it's not something that you use always. It's generally used as a motivational factor, which helps them concentrate on some effect of the situation. Okay, and what it also does is it sometimes can offer a lot of trust and rapport. Okay, but again, it's not something you use always. It's something you use just probably to motivate them, especially if they feel discouraged with something. Okay, now there are some principles. How do you use this? Is you have to be intentional, that it can create some form of a motivational change for your counseling. It has to be simple. It has to be parallel. That is, it has to be parallel to what they're saying or what they're sharing. It can't be something that's totally irrelevant to what they're saying. Do not lie. Don't make up stories. Okay? Time it correctly. It should be given not when the counselee is actually sharing and unburdening themselves and crying to you, say, let me also tell you my story. No, there's a time for that, okay? And don't overburden them and disclose too frequently, right? Because then the session will be all about you and not about them, okay? So here's an example. The counselor is saying, I know how hard it is to be consistent about disciplining the children. I struggled with correcting the behavior of my children too for a while years ago. Often it just feels like it's more work and effort, but at the end, I have seen that it has paid off being consistent. So the client is saying, oh, I can't imagine you having problems managing your kids. So the counselor says, I'll take it as a compliment, but it's been a learning experience for me too. Okay? So what do you think this counselee feels when the counselor has actually shared? Some kind of connection, okay?
You'll feel reassured that yes, others also have similar problems.
Yeah. So you feel reassured that I'm not the only one with the problem. Others also have the problem. They've also gone through it. They've been able to manage it. So I can too. Right? It helps. It just motivates someone to be able to do that in a better way. Okay. Next is feedback. What is feedback? You are actually giving information to the client which will help them to bring about some kind of an improvement. Okay? And generally this feedback should be more positive in nature and how they can explore that positivity to do better. Like, for example, let's say a student comes to you and says, I have failed in my exams this year. And you have explored earlier that they've been a very good student. They've actually managed to do their exams really well. They've always been on top. But this time, they have failed. All right? So how could you concentrate on the positive aspect? What could you say? This is not the end of it all. Okay. Okay. What do you want to do? What does it say? You're looking for a feedback that helps improvement. You know that the student has been good earlier.
Sister, you can say you can do better next time.
Okay. So take reference from how he's done earlier. That's a clue I'm giving you.
Say the earlier time the results were good because of your efforts and uh, genuine interest that you put in. But this time the reason the result has come for such and such reason because the efforts have been depreciated.
Okay.
So we're sure the next time coming forward, if you replicate the efforts which you put the previous time,
Okay.
you will likely get the same outcome.
Okay. So that's exactly what we want to do. But right now, I have understood that, right, as a counselor. But I want it to be generated by them. So the questions, what I would ask is, I'll say, okay, I know this has been a difficult season right now. Can you tell me, how did you manage to
Do better the earlier time.
How did you manage to get better results then? So they'll say, I put in effort, I did the ABCD, right? So it's coming out from them. Yeah. So I said, oh, wonderful. So the next time that you're going to do your exam, how could you pick up from what you did then and try and implement that in your next exam? So I've made them to think, right? So I've actually not bought about the bad results in this season. I've actually only picked up what is positive earlier. So it helps them to really focus on, okay, I could do it then, I can still do it. Okay, so let's look at an example. The counselor is saying, I'm wondering if you have noticed that each time we have discussed the children, your eyes have filled up. Would you explain to me what you are going through? Okay, so so what is the feedback? So remember, feedback can be in any way, right? So this feedback is, your eyes have filled up. Would you explain? So you're taking something that shows that, okay, I noticed that there was a problem there and I'm giving you that feedback. Would you like to explain that to me? This is another example. Over the past few sessions, you seem to have made efforts to stick on to the schedule you have prepared. The progress you are seeing could be related to that. That's a job well done, right? So you're just giving a feedback that helps them to really do well. Like whenever you do a test and your teacher says, hey, good job, you did a very good paper, the next time you want to keep up to it, no? At least to hear what your teacher will say similarly, okay? So this is what that influencing is. And the last one, it's to provide information and broad suggestion that can introduce your counselee to new possibilities, all right? So this is where influencing can also mean you are giving some kind of a broad suggestion. Sometimes it's okay to do that, but that shouldn't be as a regular pattern. So the counselor is saying here, I have been wanting to know all the investment plans available in a bank, but I'm afraid I really don't understand some of these terms, right? It's something that they don't know. So you're, as a counselor, saying, yes, with all the jargons, it can be a bit unfamiliar. A good person to approach to find out about these financial plans is a bank manager. Very simple, right? Simple things that you can actually get them to do. Right? It's not about decisions, major decisions about their lives, but simpler things that you can get them to do. Okay? Yeah.
Since you're talking the element of feedback, now as a counselor, take a scenario where a married couple or a sibling based on some, two siblings, based on some property issue or some business partner, two of them come. You've listened to them, you've heard them multiple sessions, but you find this thing going forward is not in the way it's been desired. It's like an end to it. You don't find it. So how will you give that feedback to them?
Nothing's working?
Yes. You've tried everything. They've spoken themselves, siblings issue, any two parties. And as a feedback, you find it's like, no, this is the end. So more than again redirecting it to somebody else. So you would.
So especially if let's say efforts, and I'd use more a marriage example for that. Like let's say a husband and wife coming together, you're doing all that you can, but still there isn't a oneness, or there isn't a communication that's happening. You can give that feedback and saying what you have observed, and that's important to do. I would say something like, in my observation over the last 15 sessions, we've attempted to come to some form of consensus. We have not been able to do that. I do see that you all have probably not been able to see eye to eye on this situation. I have found that, maybe some of the influences that I've also brought about has not helped. What do you want to do from here? Right? Because I can ask them, or I can say that I feel I'm stuck, or I don't know how to proceed from this. What is it that you think? What is it that you feel? Right? So it's sometimes you just giving a feedback about things of how you've seen it could bring about suggestions from their end, right? Which you can take up, or they may agree with you and said, yeah, we agree. We also don't see this working. I think we've come up to a decision of this far. So then you explore whatever that decision. Maybe they're saying, okay, I think we've decided that we can't stay together. And so then you explore that. Does it mean that both of them mean the same thing? So that's where you kind of bring to a kind of a termination, right? It may not always be that you're helping them in the direction that you all initially came up with. At a later time, the goals could change. And so if you come to that place where both of them have two different goals, you're not really able to work in, you give that feedback. So that's not a decision I would ever give, right? But it's something that may be explored through the session and say, okay, they feel they're not able to move through it. Would you like to give it some time? So generally, I would play it with time, because sometimes you could just feel very impulsive to do that. I would play it with time. I would ask them to meet me in person just to have an understanding of, could there be anything that works? So it's not a suggestion I would give all because they say they're okay with it, right? Because I have to be extremely careful that they shouldn't go in tomorrow and say, we separated because because of that. That shouldn't be the case, right? So I would play it, do my best to ensure to bring about some resolution or whatever reconciliation possible. And even after all of those trials, then I'll say you all need to make your decision, because this much has been tried. I never make that decision for them, and you shouldn't actually. Okay. Okay. All right. So let's do some practice. Okay. So here's the counselee, the client, is saying, I know I generally feel better after the medical procedure, but visiting a doctor is so frightening. Those needles, the smell, and the entire environment can be very daunting. Okay. So this is a person who has to get a medical procedure done, but just going to the hospital is very scary for them. All right. Now, how would you use an influencing skill? You can use either interpretation or reframing or logical consequences. What would you use? What would you respond? I want you to give me the sentence you'll use. Don't say, I will tell them this. Tell me, I am the patient who's saying I have a medical procedure and I don't like to go to a doctor. So what would you say? You can use any of those influencing skills. What can you say? You remember what interpretation reframing is? Helping them see it through another lens, right? What is logical consequence? The effect of something. All right, go.
Well, what you generally feel is something that most of us also feel the same.
Okay.
But having said that, I don't see any alternate option to get rid of this scenario if you choose not to go ahead.
So,
Without visiting a doctor.
So you're saying, you're acknowledging it is scary.
Yes.
But you are saying, boss, reality, I don't see any other difference, right?
Thing. And by doing so, that if there is any other alternative, could you suggest me without going to the doctor how else we can treat this thing?
Okay.
So you're putting him in a place where he has no other, he only comes up, yes, I don't have any other option but to go to a doctor.
So I would minimize the second thing that you said, which is there's nothing you can do. There's no other option other than you going to a doctor, right? Because you have actually put a finality to that, which is which is the right thing. So that's what you said. That's the third thing that you said. You said, you may ask what could be the other option instead of going to the doctor to get your treatment, right? So then they may say, that's a good one. Very good. Nice. Okay. What are the other ways? That's not the only answer. There can be many answers. Okay. Did you all understand the situation? So I have to go take out my,
The thing like without, if you play with time in this scenario, okay, you are likely to, aggravate the consequence of the medical emergency.
Correct.
Which could lead you to further.
This you can't play with time. Right?
You need to act upon it.
Act. Yes.
So
absolutely.
I would put that to the counselor by postponing.
You're saying that telling them that
by deferring or taking more time to decide on this, things could aggravate. It could lead to more financial
so again,
challenges.
You may need to ask through a question.
Okay.
That's your logical consequences. What would you say? Give me a question.
Okay. Good. So don't you think by taking time to decide, you're aggravating the
question? Ask an open question.
Okay.
Don't you think it's yes, I think.
Okay.
You're actually trying to put an answer in their minds.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
But that's not what you want. You really genuinely want them to think about the consequences. Okay?
I would ask, ma'am.
I
would ask. I understand how you must feel. It must be really scary. But do you think you have any other option? What other option do you think you have?
Okay, so that Akhil said he brought that up in the first one, which is the reinterpretation, interpretation or reframing. Very good. That's one. We were looking at
Yeah.
logical consequences. Can you all hear Akhil?
Yes, we can.
You can. You can. Okay. Yeah. So Akhil, question.
Will by any means differing this procedure or the visit, will it not try to add more financial burden? That's a closed-end question. How do I actually put
So
that as an
how
open-end
does
question?
time?
Uh,
Remember the words how,
uh,
when, what, why.
uh,
Those are the open-ended ones. So
okay.
how would time
Uh,
change the course of your treatment, or change the course of the outcome of your
outcome
treatment?
of thing. And then would you also just put a one-liner like, will it not add more burden? Leave it there.
I would say, I said, how could time change the course of your treatment? Said, yeah, if I don't do this now, maybe I'll get sicker. Maybe I'm saving this money now, but I'll have to spend more. Something like that will come out, right? You want them to say it, right? So, and that's why this questioning is so important. You are trying to bring it in such a way, not in a way that they will agree to your answer, because that's what you're intending to do when you're asked, would you, do you think time is going to make this worse? It is true, but you want them to think, how could time affect the outcome of your treatment? Got that? That's logical consequence. Very good.
Akhil's reasoning is correct, but only the way he's asking is like he's telling you should do this, literally, like.
Correct. Yes. Yes. So you, through this, what you're doing is, remember when is the best time you're influenced is only when you feel strongly about something, right? That's when you are influenced. You may be stirred otherwise, that's right, but to be influenced, you have to realize it for yourself, and that's what you want to do in your conversations. Okay, all right, we'll take another example. Okay, I want everyone else to respond. I don't have only Akhil and Natasha in my class. Everyone else, come on. Next one. Last week, I used the techniques we discussed on how to control my anger by taking a timeout. But this morning, I completely lost it and screamed and shouted at my mother. This is just hopeless. Okay? So you can use any influencing skills that you learned. Yeah. So how would you respond? Tell me what you're going to ask me.
Sister, I would say,
Yeah.
is it necessary for you to get angry?
Okay.
Knowing the outcome of your anger, it causes your mother and everybody else. Do you see any good coming out of it?
Okay. So what is an answer you're going to get?
It depends on you, sister.
No. So if you look at this, they are feeling very hopeless because they couldn't control their anger, right?
Yeah.
They're very upset that they couldn't control their anger. So when you say, do you think your
Is it
anger has,
necessary?
is
Yeah.
it necessary that you is thing? They're going to say what? No, right?
Yeah.
He
But
or she knows that
knowing
it is
that
not
it
necessary.
affects your mother, it makes others unhappy. I mean, is it really? I mean, is there like, could you think calmly and I don't know what to say.
Okay. Okay.
Sister?
So what you want them to do is, if you look at that sentence, the frustration is that they are not able to control their anger. That's the frustration. They really want to, because last week I used the technique we discussed. So he's saying that he used it, but this week he was not able to use it, and he's feeling upset that he's not able to use it, right? So I don't think There is a lack of intention. It's just at that point of time they were not able to control. Right? So what you're attempting to do is to encourage them. Because they're discouraged right now, you're encouraging them because they were able to control it last time, they're not able to do it now, and you want to encourage them. That's what you're attempting. You're influencing and encouraging them to carry on. It's okay. That's what you want to tell them, but you're not going to say, hey, it's okay that you do it. Yes, Biju. Okay. 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 All right. Okay. So it's a self-disclosure that you're saying. Okay, good. So
Shall
that's
I, sister?
yes, yes.
Good, you were able to control your anger last week, but this happens. You will need to avoid it.
Okay. All right. Okay, good. So we'll come back after 10 minutes of our break and we'll probably just close this as well. Okay? 10 minutes and we'll be back.